In this video I want to show you how I created this Fagus crenata forest, a landscape with 4 dimensions. I hope you enjoy it. Today it feels like I'm a chef and this is my kitchen. I've been prepping these Japanese beech Fagus crenata for a few years to make a nice forest. I love the landscaping part of bonsai. I think a good bonsai has the image of an old tree, but the sense of a landscape. And today we're gonna focus on the sense of a landscape. Plenty of trees, so I wanted to create a big landscape. I choose to use this slate. It's a European slate. I prepped it yesterday because it was not as rounded and good as I liked it. I used a hammer and a chisel to cut the sides. I used a cutting tool to corner this pointed edge to give it a rounded feeling. I drilled some holes in it to get rid of the excess water. And then I wanted to create the 3rd dimension in height as well. Not only depth, one in front of the other, but also in height. So that's why I choose this stone. It's a beautiful stone from Scandinavia. Thank you very much, my Danish friend and my Norwegian friend. I've got it in my garden for quite a few years, and I think this one is perfect to create some height and also create some depth. In combination with the trees, we have to choose how it is going to be positioned. One thing I'm not so happy with is the coloration of both elements, because they are quite in the same color. So what I'm going to do is put this stone on a small moss bed with some small plants in front of it. As you can see, the shape of the tree, of the stone is, both sides are beautiful, but I think this side is more beautiful, so we've got this overhanging edge. We can put some trees here, create some height, create some overhanging branches. In combination with the suggestion of water over here, I think it's going to be a nice one. And I've got a technical part of this composition as well. Besides drilling the holes and everything, I'm going to use this net, put it over the stone where the trees are going to be, glue it to the slate, and then use the small iron wires with some aluminium wires to secure the trees all together to make the composition. I'm going to put the edges of the net underneath the big stone. I don't glue the stone is very stable and quite heavy, so it won't move. And in that way I create a fixed and sturdy forest style. I think that's the way we're going to do it. So let's focus on the green part of the composition at first. I choose to work with these Japanese beech, Fagus crenata. They are about 10 to 20 years old yet. I selected them, collected them from several suppliers, and prepped them for the last 7 years, I think. They are all in small pots, so we can do a lot on the roots today because the root balls are very compact. As you see, timing is not perfect. Some already have some leaves. Some are still, well, not dormant because the buds are opening already. But because of the small root balls and the well-prepped root balls, I think it's fair to do a repot today. Got about 14 trees. I don't know whether we're going to use them all, but we're going to combine them with the other elements. So the Japanese beech is not the most easy tree to work with. It's deciduous, but not a very strong growing one, except for the first flush in the spring. As you can see, these are quite well ramified. The trunk lines are beautiful. The ramification is not that bad. But one of the important things when making a forest is that the root balls are compact. Because, as you know, we want to cluster trees, want to put them together, create depth by creating darkness at the shades. So it's important that if you start with a forest, that if there is time, take a few years to compact the root balls, to make everything, yeah, suitable for a clustered way of making a composition. That's why all the trees are in small pots, well prepped, well cut, and ready for the next stage in their bonsai life. So about the composition, the stone is quite directive. From left to right, it has a strong direction and a strong feeling of motion. And I think that's something we can use on this quite square slate. You know, Japanese beeches are quite traditionally shaped, upright, but some have a nice direction in the trunk line and in the branching. And that is something I want to combine with the stone. The stone has two fronts. In this case, the stone is a little bit hanging over. I like that because that gives depth. We can create some dark water feelings here. The other side of the stone is also very nice, but hanging to the backwards, and that gives this feeling of doubt, and you cannot really connect with it because it's hanging backwards. This can be a nice front when you have a big tree with large hanging over branches like a pine or a juniper, more something that is into the mountains and like that. Japanese beech doesn't grow in the mountains, so I think it's more natural and connective when we create a lowland scenery with some water. We create some air, some wind. There's going to be a direction of movement from left to right where the wind is playing its part. But in that case, when the stone is this directive, we have to place it very subtle. Now it's in the middle and then it equals out the composition, which is not a nice idea. Because the movement and the overhanging part and the nice details here, I think it's a good idea to put it a little bit to the left, a little bit angled, and the idea is to let the trees follow this movement. So for me, I think the stone is about to be placed here. I've got the biggest tree over here, and I think it will be nice to put that tree somewhere over here, create some height in the composition, and then from there we are going to put all the trees around it like in a crescent shape, from smaller up to big to smaller. I want to create a spare group of trees over here, so it looks like a big landscape with several groups. The smaller ones, of course, in the back to create depth. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But for now, for the technical part, I want to prepare the slate and everything. So I think the stone is about to be placed here. I don't glue it, so we have a little bit of a adjustive possibility. And as you can see, I want to let all the trunk lines follow up each other in the higher part of the tree where the wind is playing a part, and lower, the more straight up ones are going to be used. To create some coloration, I will put some small plants and moss around the stone as well. And after that, I think with some oil and some water, but I think oil is a more permanent way, I'm going to give the slate a darker color by keeping it wet. So now the preparation of the slate, and after that we're going to prepare the trees for the composition. So the epoxy is hardening. It's 2-component glue, so it keeps the net down and on its place. Now I'm going to prep the kato with some fiber moss, with some sphagnum. I like the fiber moss in it. It keeps the kato together and it helps to get the water through the kato, because when the kato dries out, it deteriorates and falls apart, and we want to keep everything sturdy. So I 30% sphagnum and 70% kato. I'm going to knit it together with some water, make a nice compound of it. So we're going to add the kato as a kind of rim to keep the akadama in the composition. I wetted the stone because kato fixes on the wet stone better than on a dry stone. And just a small, like a dike, we are Dutch, why not? To catch the difference in height, I need quite a piece of kato over here. Technically, this is the most interesting part of the stone. The other side is okay. I worked it out like that, but this side needs a little bit more coverage for the akadama. So I cannot put everything on it now. Later, when we've got the back of the akadama, I can build up a bigger piece of kato here and then flatten it out and work it into a nice slope. But for now I think this is okay to build up some akadama, and then later on I'm going to cover it more. Last part is that I'm going to put some 1.5 mil wires on the net to secure all the fagus.
Before continuing, I'd like to show you our brand new Bonsai Care app. The app provides tree species specific information for all your trees, and it can set smart reminders to optimize the care for your bonsai. It is available for free in the app stores.
So we have to untangle all the root balls, comb them out, keep the minimum amount of healthy soil and roots to the trees, so we can make the composition on the slate. As you can see, some have been repotted last year. So the root balls are quite nice. Some active white roots. You know, the Fagus is a symbiosis tree with some mycorrhiza. So we always leave some soil in it and just comb them out the way we are used to do it with deciduous trees. Well, everything is prepared now. We untied all the root balls, we cut them. I did some improvement on the nebari. And very important for me to have a good overview, we put them from biggest and the thickest trunk till the youngest and the thinnest trunk. So later when we make the composition, I can grab what I need and build up the composition. We did put all the securing wires in. Now I'm going to use a little layer of drainage. We use Vulkastrat, which is a nice mixture of beams, lava and some zeolite. And that will help to get the water off the top of the slate. On that we will work with Akadama with a little bit of Vulkastrat to stabilize the mixture. And from there we will start building the composition. Perfect to get some oxygen underneath the entire structure. The net is plastified, as you can see, so that is safe for the trees. It won't oxidize or give other kind of values to the soil than what we give to the trees ourselves, and that is just perfect. But here's a small layer of additional oxygen and drainage underneath the Akadama mix we are going to use. So what you're going to do is put Akadama 80%, about 20% of Vulkastrat in it, which is a stabilizing half porous kind of volcanic material. When we look at the bonsai composition and we make a landscape, there are several things you want to create. One of them is depth. And depth, when we look to, for example, art in painting, you see that, well, Rembrandt, sorry, I'm Dutch, is someone who created depth by light and darkness. If you want to create depth in a room, and it's only this thin painting, you create depth by making the back part darker and darker and lighting out the front. So for example, this main tree will be in the front, somewhere over here. I choose to get the trunk line together with the stone shape. Going to the back, I want to concentrate the amount of trees, so there is more darkness, more shade, more shading, and that's one of the things we're going to do. The second thing we do, think about perspective, is we put the bigger, thicker trunks in front and the smaller ones in the back. For example, this is the smallest one, and it's going to be somewhere around here, and then the idea of big to small makes the feeling of a very deep landscape. The distance between the trees is going to be smaller and smaller as well, so we create this, what we do when you paint a road on a canvas. You make the lines of the roads almost hit each other at the horizon, and that is something that we are going to do as well. But our horizon is not to the back, but is diagonally through the composition. And from this part we're going to put some trees loose from this group with some area between, and then from this side we create another perspective. So the two perspectives have, I don't know the English word, we call it a burning point, so where all the perspectives reach each other in the back, so the burning point will be here. And the way you kind of look through the composition is like and out. So we create something that is like an eternal, ongoing movement in it. Well, at least that's the idea. Creating an idea of water here, there are two ways trees interact with water. One of them is that the reflection of the light and the humidity makes the tree overgrow the water, which is what we see the most here in our Dutch landscape. The other way, and that's more coastal, is that the tree is by the wind from the water shaped or directed lengthwise, so in the land. So in this case, when this was an ocean and the wind was coming from the ocean, we should put the tree the other way around. But here we are not in a coastal area, maybe only a lake. So the effect of the water is that the tree is overgrowing the water. Well, I think the second tree should be somewhere around here. That helps a lot with this branch, because that fills out the composition, and the trunk line is almost similar to the main tree. So that's the next tree we can replace. To give the sense of pressure from this side. While the stone is rounded, like this, I want the trees to be rounded as well. So I put this main branch of that tree a little bit more to the front. And I think this one is a perfect position. Not in line, it's a little bit more in front of the big one. So it gives the movement from the left direction as well. I'm going to secure this one already a little bit. So otherwise it will fall over several times during our work. So to get this tree in the right slant, I need a little bit of a pinpoint underneath the root ball. So I just use a bamboo stick, put it straight up, and by putting a tree next to it a little bit later, well, I like to give a little bit of space over here to show the right amount of open area around the stone. So I think this is the last one over here. I always like to hide the securing wires. I don't like them on the surface of trees, so trying to get things a little bit out of sight. This is why I don't secure the trees too strong in the first place. Just getting started with the compo. I think this is a better position for them. I can get them more loose of the stone. Together, the three of them, and it's a little bit more separated to the rest. I think this is more better. This is better now. Yeah. So what I do after filling out the shape of the root balls with akadama mix, I flip over the kato and close the higher parts of the root balls. Here I lower the kato a little bit just to reach out to this nebari part, and that this can be covered with moss later on. Of course, I don't want to put as much as kato as might be convenient for now, but the trees need to breathe, and I like the open areas of akadama more than the kato. That's why. And here I don't need anything more. This slope can be covered with moss, and then it's okay. as you can see, the trees are put together. Everything is in composition for now. We watered everything. Next step for me is always covering the nebaris, the soil. We've got plenty of moss, gathered it here around the village. I've got some small plants to add some green and some additional details to the composition. Maybe I add some small pieces of stone on the slope side to make it a little bit more natural and detailed. I don't like it when a group planting is like a green tennis ball, straight or rounded. So there can be some movement in it, some details, some deepening, some heights. And I want to make a separation between the slate and the stone by putting some moss and some small plants here as well. So the coloration will be well divided by the moss and some plants. So not grey to grey in this case. I hope you like it so far. After that, when we finished everything with the moss and the plants, then I'm going to do the pruning because the health of the trees is my first concern, to keep the soil together. If you, by watering, you can see you rinse out the chaeto. So we want to cover the chaeto with the moss, and after that we do the pruning and a little bit of styling. Maybe some wires. We remove the guide wires and then everything is ready to grow. I don't like the sharp edges of this stone. It might be nice when we talk about the mountain scenery and we talk about pines or junipers, but in this case I want to soften the stone a little bit by putting some moss and some small plants on the sides and on the slopes to make it look more like a waterside, lakeside scenery. So this is the way I like to put some small plants in it. Within a few weeks I will cut it, make it even smaller, but now we cover up the rest of the stone and make everything more fluent. So we put the moss, we put some small plants around it. Now the last phase, and that is cutting the trees, pruning them, and try to get some air and some light in between the trees, but still get this feeling of compact and compression on this side. We have to correct some lines in the last part of the trunks. So there's a lot to do, a lot to prune. I choose not to wire this time, so the composition is not going to be perfect. Later on, when the trees are settled, the sap flow is active, I will wire some branches. For example, this branch, maybe this is a small wire. I think this is the only wire I will put in just for today and give you an idea of what the details will be. But first now a big pruning round. Try to open up the trunks a little bit. Try to get some idea of where to go. This is Fagus, so you cannot prune them and leave a bald piece of branch. You always need a bud on the end of the part that you want to keep and you want to get prosperous. So there is quite some work to do. For now I clean out the inner branches that are growing inside of curves of trunks. I try to cut out the doubles. I'm not so keen on very flat layers in this case, so I keep the branches a little bit of natural. And the ones that are already opening up with the leaves, I prune them back to 2 leaves to keep everything healthy and running. I cut out the last one, the back one. So we've got two apexes that we have to decide on. When we follow this flow, it's nice that this one is quite high. So at first I was thinking about cutting it in here, but I won't. I only will remove one of these two branches, so there will not be a wooden cluster. Here we have to lower the apex a little bit, and I want to cut out this part, so this is going to be the highest point, so the main trees will open up a little bit. Well, we are about to finish the first day of this new natural scenery of a lakeside. Let's have a look around. Created by thinner trees in the back, bigger trees in the front. The slope is quite nice, I think. I try to create a suggestion of some water. Of course, the slate is dirty now, but later on it will be clean and shiny. For now, the aftercare is I will put it in a glass house, a non-heated glass house, try to get all the trees started. We didn't prune a lot of strong roots, so I think it will be fine. Pinching it very soon. As you know, the Japanese beech is quite sensitive on when and how to prune it, so that's going to be a big step. And maybe in future I want to add some underneath small plants, grass types, to give it a little bit more diversity. But for now I wanted to present it to you as a clean, new, natural scenery. So in this piece I try to put everything I learned and adapted over the last decades of my bonsai life. As you know, bonsai has many geographic determinations, and I wanted to create a piece that is in between Japanese, Penjing, European bonsai as a scenery with a Japanese variety, with some, I think, typical Penjing influences in it, but still a piece that suits the Deshima collection, and I hope you can enjoy it.
Learn how to create your own bonsai trees by enrolling in one of our online bonsai courses. We explain techniques like pruning, wiring and repotting, and you can ask questions to the teachers. For the curriculums and free lessons, go to bonsaiempire.com/courses.